Hello, welcome to today's live. It's been a while since I've been on. You might be wondering where I've been. I actually went on about a almost 3 week vacation to India and Dubai with my wife. It was one of those bucket list things, and we did the Golden Triangle, went to the Himalayas, went to Dubai, the Burj Khalifa, all that stuff. If you have a chance to go, you should. It takes a long time to get there, but it's great to go. All right, well, happy holidays, everybody. In case I don't do a live before the holidays, I hope everybody will have a prosperous and happy new year as well. So, what's the live going to be today? Well, we're going to talk about medical waivers, which I've done before, but specifically today, I thought that I would talk more about getting a waiver if you don't want to get a COVID vaccine, okay? And what that takes, and the law, and all that stuff. And then what I'll do is I will answer your questions later, after, and get back with you. So you can put whatever questions you have now. I'll be happy to answer them as soon as I'm done with my live spiel on the subject, and then we'll get going from there. Okay? That's how it works. All right, so the medical waiver. Okay, so essentially you have some medical form of inadmissibility and you want to try to get it waived. And I've done videos on this before and what needs to be done and so forth. But the issue that I'd like to present today is the COVID vaccine. Okay? I've had lots of issues with this over the past, and immigration law has made it so that you have to get a COVID vaccine if you want to get the green card. Simple as that. Okay? And so the people who don't want it, they essentially come to me and they say they don't believe in it, they don't want it, they just, feel it's not right. And they just don't want to get it. Well, if that's the only reason that you don't want the COVID vaccine, that's fine for, normal everyday life. It's fine if you want to live here and you're a U.S. citizen. But if you want to get the green card, it's not fine. Okay, there's no medical waiver for somebody who doesn't want the COVID vaccine simply because they don't want the COVID vaccine, okay, or they have political views against it. There's no waiver for that. And there's no way around the political view if that's the only reason you don't want to get the waiver. So you can argue up and down, you can scream and yell, but the waiver won't be granted and you won't get the green card, okay? So ultimately, you're going to have to decide if you don't qualify for the waiver, which I'll get into in a minute what that will take. But if you don't qualify for the waiver because you don't have the COVID vaccine, you'll have a decision to make. It will be don't get the COVID vaccine and don't get the green card, or it'll be get the COVID vaccine and get the green card. That's what it comes down to. So what are the elements and ways that people can get a waiver of not taking the COVID vaccine? Okay. Well, one is religious. Okay. And if there are real religious reasons why you're not going to take the vaccine, then the waiver would be granted. But, a lot of times when people have political opposition to getting the vaccine, they'll say, well, it's my religion. And that by itself isn't going to work, okay? When you're submitting the waiver, the burden is on you to prove that, in fact, it is a religious reason as to why you can't get the waiver. And simply saying simply saying, well, it's against my religion. That's not going to work, okay? Because they're under no obligation to grant you a waiver simply because you say you have a religious objection to it, okay? The law is that it is your burden to prove that there is a religious reason why you can't take the vaccine. So let's say, for example, you claim it's a religious reason, and then in your records it shows that you have all the other vaccines for measles and mumps and rubella and polio and all that other stuff. Well, there goes your argument. Okay? I mean, you can't pick and choose which vaccines you want if it's a religious reason. If it's a religious reason, then there are no vaccines for you, period, that you have taken. Unless, for example, they were given to you when you were a kid and something changed, and now your religious beliefs are such that you don't take vaccines. Okay? It's very factual based. So you have to present all the facts as to why it falls under the religious tenets of your particular religion as to why you can't get the vaccine. Okay, so that's the religious part of it. So what is another reason, which is pretty much the only other reason, that you would be able to get a medical waiver of not getting the COVID vaccine? Well, that would be health. Okay? So, again, you can't just say, it makes me unhealthy, or I think I'm going to get, sick from it, or I have 2 friends who died from it, and therefore I'm not taking it. Okay? Without any proof, without any evidence, you can't just make statements. I mean, you can make statements like that, but it's not going to go anywhere. Again, it is your burden of proof to get the waiver granted. It is not their burden of proof to try to dissuade you from getting the waiver, okay? You're the one who wants the waiver, and you're inadmissible because you're not getting the COVID vaccine. So it is your burden to prove that it is a health condition as to why. Now, what does that take? Well, obviously, you're going to need some medical documentation. If it just comes from you, and you just say, whatever the medical reasons are, it's not going to mean anything. They're not going to believe it. If it's a real medical reason, then you'll have something from a doctor, from a hospital, from a clinic, from medical personnel. Okay, you'll have records which will show, maybe you're allergic to whatever's in there, or maybe your immune system is so compromised that if you take a vaccine, which gets your immune system up and running, that maybe it will make it worse. Okay, that's how that all works. So it is possible that if you prove to their satisfaction that there's a health reason you don't take it, then it would be granted, and then you'll be able to get the green card. Now, there's no delineation between the family-based green card, employment-based green card based on the fact you were a victim of crime, diversity lottery, all different kinds, whatever it is. If you want the green card in any of the different ways, you have to get vaccinated for the COVID unless you have a waiver, okay? And the waivers are either medical or religious, okay? Not political, okay? So that's the thrust of it. Let me see if we have any questions today. So this is when I scroll back. I say, hello, everybody. How you doing? Give me a minute. There's a lot of people that joined here, so I had to go back to the beginning, because I've said this before. I wish that there would be a button that I could just click and just see whatever questions people popped without having to scroll through everything, because wouldn't that make it easier? Although, then me and you wouldn't get this time to talk, would we? Okay, let's see. Scrolling. I don't think we have a lot of questions today. It is the holiday season and people are just joining in to listen. Let me just see. While I'm scrolling down, when I get to the bottom, if I don't see any questions, I'm going to say adios, amigos. But if you do have questions, let me know. Just a minute. Okay, I'm almost there. Okay, so on the question front, it seems like it's a pretty slow day today, which is okay. Sometimes I get so many questions I can't finish them all, and other times like today, there's nothing, so it's okay. But I hope that you have enjoyed my live, learned a couple things, and if you have any, issues later, that you want to know, just go ahead and email me. I do have one here at the end here. I applied for a work permit with the wrong gender, and now I submitted a correction before they issue it. I mean, that's not a question, but if the thing about the work permit, it's very mechanical. If you qualify for it, they don't check admissibility, they don't check inadmissibility. But the problem is when you take the work permit and you go to get a job, and it says you're Mrs. Henry Jones instead of Mr. Henry Jones, they're going to think it's a fake work permit. They're going to think you're committing fraud. But on the other hand, when you submit a correction to get it reissued, that's going to take a long time. It's not like you're the only one sending something to immigration. So if you need the work permit to work, which is obvious, but if you're starting a new job, for example, and they're willing to hire you, what I would do is show them the work permit with the wrong gender on it and say, look, they issued it incorrectly with the wrong gender, but it's still a valid work permit, and therefore allow them and see if they'll hire you with the work permit with the wrong gender. Let them know you're sending in to get the amended work permit, and if it comes back, when it comes back, you'll let them know, and they'll put that in their I-9 file rather than the incorrect one. Okay? That was easy. All right? Let's see. Okay, if the vaccine doesn't prevent spreading or contracting COVID, what does the booster boost? Okay. That's not really an immigration question, because the immigration issue is if you don't want the vaccine, then you're not getting the green card. But just on an immigration side, the immigration does not require the booster. Okay. By the way, anyone who wants to send me some hearts, go ahead, so we can get some today. The immigration doesn't require a booster shot, and therefore, if you got the original vaccine but you didn't get any of the boosters, then you're okay as far as immigration goes. You don't need to get a waiver now. Just a minute, let me scroll back. Now let me answer you as far as I know medically. I'm not a doctor, obviously, but so if the vaccine doesn't prevent spreading or contracting COVID, well, no, that the issue is not whether the vaccine prevents spreading or contracting it. Okay, the issue is what it does do is it makes it so that when you get it, the severity of the COVID that you got is way less than if you didn't take it. Okay, there's people who haven't taken the vaccine and they get COVID and they practically die. Okay, or they get long COVID, or they're miserable the rest of their lives with what they have. There's people who have taken the vaccine who get COVID. They still get COVID. That's the similarity. They still get COVID, but it's more like a flu. Okay? I mean, it's more like a flu. They feel bad for a few days, like a flu, and then they're off to go. Okay? They're good to go after that. So that's your premise on what the vaccine does or doesn't do is incorrect. It doesn't prevent the spreading. It prevents it from becoming severe when you get it. Okay? And the booster, the COVID is like war against humanity, right? I mean, once the humans have found a vaccine for whatever it is they do, they like get together and they find a new strain. Okay, they go, well, they haven't done this. So they find a new strain, and then that gets past the defenses that the vaccine was meant to stop, right? And so the booster looks and says, "Oh, we know what you guys have done. You have done this and that to try to get past our defenses. So now we're going to make new gates and new defenses to allow you to not get through." So the booster then helps not prevent, but become much less severe if you get COVID based on the the new parameters they have, which the booster will stop. Okay, there you go. There's my medical diagnosis. Okay. Okay, let me see. 1 second. Okay. How risky it could be to travel back to your country on asylum-based green card? Well, see, the reason for this question is because you came to the U.S. because you were being persecuted in your country, and you applied for asylum because of that persecution, and then now you won asylum and you got the green card based upon persecution, and now you're afraid if you go back to that same country upon which you were granted asylum, immigration will say, well, you were just lying. You don't really fear persecution. So number one, on the face, it's not risky. Okay, if you have the green card, you can come and go as you please. There's nothing against that. Okay. But if evidence comes out that in fact you did lie and that it wasn't real and that, there's really nobody against you there, they could begin revocation proceedings of your green card, but they would have to have evidence for that. So the mere fact of you going to your country, shouldn't affect it at all. I mean, your mother might be dying and you could stay under the radar and you're going to go visit her and then you're going to come back. Okay. It's not like you're going to go there, go on television and start, talking about your political beliefs against the president of the country. So that should be okay for you if it's done right. Just hopefully you didn't make any misrepresentations and lies when you got the green card in the first place. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Wait, I scrolled and it went past a bunch of questions. Just a minute. Here we go. Okay. Let's see. 1 second. Let me just finish. Okay, my 485 is denied. Didn't receive the letter. Do I have an order of removal? Okay, well, a couple things. Okay, the 485 is an adjustment of status. So first things first, I would have to know why the 485 was denied and when it was denied. Okay, if we're talking just very recently, it's possible to do a motion to reopen if you didn't get it and to show why and to go forward if you do qualify. However, if it was denied because of some reason on the merits, like, you couldn't prove a bona fide marriage or there wasn't ability to pay for the employer, that's one thing. As far as if you have an order for removal, I know you're asking that because you're worried that you got the denial. It's unlikely that they're just going to do that after a denied 485. But if you have any questions about it, I'm not sure if you know your A number, but if you have an A number, there's a way of finding out if you do have an order of removal. I can tell you your worry about that is misplaced. What you need to worry about is why the 485 was denied and if it can be rectified. So call my office. I'll let you know what I can do because, if it was just a matter of, that you qualified, but that you then moved and didn't notify them and they sent something like an RFE or something to the old address, it's very possible that we can get this rectified. Okay? So I wouldn't say don't worry at all about the removal, but be more concerned about trying to get the 485 approved, assuming you qualify. Okay. Okay, just a second. Okay, and then I know later you say, give me the number. I'm not sure if you're saying your A number, because I don't know your A number, obviously. But if you're talking about the office number, it's 562-495-0554. You know how many times I've said that over 30 years? Okay. Let me see. So I think, okay, how can I get the vaccine waiver? That's what this whole thing was about. I mean, procedure. Oh, I guess procedurally, I didn't go into a lot of detail about that. But assuming you qualify, when you submit, for example, if you're submitting an adjustment, or if you have to submit the consulate, jurisdictionally, it depends where you're submitting the application for the green card. But you would submit the waiver. Now, the waiver is a whole thing. You know, it's the forms, the cover letter, declarations, affidavits, legal argument, you know, all the stuff to show why they should grant it. Okay. And you submit it simultaneously. And then if they approve it, then they'll then adjudicate the adjustment application. The waiver on a consulate processing is a little different as far as timing goes. Okay. So again, give my office a call. I can help you out. All right, let's see. Just a minute. I just want to make sure I don't miss anybody. Okay, I'm about to close it out here, so if anybody has any last minute questions, go for it. Okay. Thank you. You're welcome. Which means I gave you the right number. You're asking about the phone number. Okay. All right. I think that'll do it. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed the live today. If you have any questions or consultations, I have numerous ways you can contact me. You know, obviously, if you're outside the U.S., WhatsApp is heavy duty used, so you know I'm big time on WhatsApp, and so forth. And I'll be happy to get back with you, let you know procedurally what can be done, and so forth. I got one more question. Let me do it real quick before I go. I applied for my parents. They're living in India. They need to get the COVID vaccine. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's nothing saying you do not need the COVID vaccine if you happen to be living in India. Okay. They could care less where you live. It's where you come, which is the U.S. In order to walk in the door in the U.S., you need to have the vaccine. So they either need to get it or they need to get the waiver. Simple as that. Okay? All right, everybody. Have a good day.